Hello and welcome to another Unity game programming tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be building a 2D game. So I've brought in a new dialog box. I've called my project a Catcher 2D, and I'm going to pick 2D from the list, and I'm going to click Create Project. Once a project has been created, I will going to bring about the items that I want to work with in this. Drag my catcher object and my grass object. So I have my catcher and grass objects that I want to work with. If I want to implement my grass object right here, it's a very small entity. I can drag it and I can fill up the entire screen with it. I can go in the game view to look at as to how it appears. If it doesn't cover the entire screen, I can actually move it around to cover more portion of the screen than what it actually covers. So that's one perspective that I can look at. That's to how my screen looks like. And then I can go about filling up with more grass. Let me get rid of it for now. Let me bring in my catcher. Let me reduce the size of my catcher. And let me place it wherever I would like to place it on canvas. Now as soon as I bring on this my grass object and drag it and draw it, you will notice that it simply overlays on top of the catcher. So I'm going to now go to the catcher and change its layering. And I have to be an inspector, which has a property called order in layer. And if I change it to 1, you'll notice that automatically the catcher will now appear on the screen. If I go to my game, you can see that it can show the catcher. So as you can see that I click on my camera and I am now able to fill up my entire camera with my grass. Even in the game mode, this is how it actually appears. The idea of this game would be that as I move my mouse around, my catcher glove actually moves with the mouse. In order for me to do that, I have to first of all change my catcher by adding a component of Physics 2D and make it a rigid body. So that would allow me to work with it so that I can move it on the canvas. Secondly, I can go under Add Component and I can add a script. We're going to call this one Move Catcher Script. Once the script gets created, you can double click on it to bring it in Community 2015. Once it loads, we're going to bring about the code that we're going to be working with in this example. First of all, I want to declare some entities which are global to both start, and instead of update, I want to use fixed update. So as you can see, I have a variable called maxWidth, which is private. I will going to be using it to keep the entire width of the screen available through the camera to me so that my glove stays within that. And I have a camera object so that I can tie from my script to the camera object, which is the main camera object whose vision I'm. In the start method, we will going to first of all make sure that if camera is equals to null, we would like to assign the main camera to the camera object. Once that is done, we would now like to locate the screen width and the screen height. Those are my X and Y axis on my vector 3 object. But I would now like to record my Z axis because I want to. It's a 2D game. It's not a 3D game. Now going to my fixed update, I will going to now. Before I decide to go to the fixed update and do my rendering, I would now like to do some more activities once I have my screen width and screen height recorded. So first of all, I have used my upper corner vector 3 object to position my camera so that I can figure out my target width. And from my target width, I am figuring out the X to figure out my max width that I'm going to be playing with. Inside fixed update, the first thing that I want to do is I want to locate my mouse position. So that's why to the camera, I have given input.mousePosition. So mouse position will going to hold the X and the Y coordinates on which the mouse is placed. And accordingly, I'm going to move my glove. Now, based on the raw position, I would now like to create a target position, With target position, we're going to set the Y and the Z axis to 0, but the X axis is tied to the raw position's X axis, as I want to move my catcher along X axis. Then I have a variable called target width. This target width is clamped to the X axis, and it has to stay within the negative to positive range of the maximum width, so that I stay within my screen limit of the camera. Then I'm reutilizing my target position, which I declared in line number 20, as I have already used it to tie to raw position. Now I would like to tie it to the target width and the target position's y-axis and the z-axis. So wherever my mouse pointer is, I want to tie the target position to that. However, at the same time, I want it to stay within the width of this camera. Now, if you're using the newer versions of Unity, then you have to call upon the getComponent rigid body 2D method. In the older versions, you would not do it this way. In 4.6 or prior to that, you'll actually have access to rigid body 2 in all lowercase 2D, and then you would say dot move position. But here in the newer version, you have to call through getComponent. So now you are changing the rigid body 2D, which is actually my catcher glove. I'm moving its position based on the value of the target position. I'll save my changes in my script. Now in Unity, you click on your catcher. In the inspector, inside the script, you tie the camera to the main camera. Once that's done, you will now go into play. And as you can see, as I move my mouse, my catcher moves along and stays within my bounds. So now you can use this idea to create different kinds of games. You can have a game where the bottom object is actually shooting at the falling objects, or you can actually create it so that the falling objects are actually caught by this object which is moving around the x-axis. As soon as there is a collision detected, you can gain points which you can display in anywhere on the screen. So since I'm moving my mouse around, but I'm not moving it on the Y or the Z axis, therefore the glove actually stays around the horizontal axis, where my mouse can go anywhere on the Y axis that will not going to change the position of the catcher. And that's exactly what we instructed it to do right here as we clamp it on the X axis. Hope you would have enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for watching.